Hi darlings, my name is Daniella and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a My Lady Jane season 1 review and I'm so excited. I love this show so much. It was so interesting. The plot was so interesting. I love that it was like historical but different because I'm such a history nerd, and so like seeing the changes and stuff was so much fun. I think the costuming was amazing. I want every single one of Jane's dresses, and I just think like the show, the chemistry between the actors and every single scene was just so good. And I'm gonna talk about the plot, what I want for season 2, because I want a season 2. Amazon, if you're watching this, please give us a season 2. First of all, there are so many great characters. I really liked a lot of the characters. I'm gonna start off with Susanna. Susanna was Jane's maid who actually ended up being an Ethian, and I really thought it was so interesting. Like the first couple minutes in the show when we found out that Susanna was the Ethian, I was like, what the heck? Because obviously we didn't know what Ethians were, so that was really gag. And I really enjoyed Susanna's character. She was willing to call out Jane and be like, you didn't ask me anything about me. You knew nothing about me. Like, I was your maid. We weren't really friends. I was your maid and I was just trying to stay alive. And I think that that was really interesting. I like the perspective that she gave Jane, and I just like Susanna. Archer. I am so excited to talk about Archer because I really liked Archer, and I think his character was so interesting. And I really want to learn more about Archer because he said that he is noble, so like he's the child of a noble person, and everyone just thought he died, but he actually was Ethian. So I'm really interested to like hear more about his backstory. I really want to know more about Archer. I also think the actor that plays Archer is like so cute. I really liked Archer. I like the fact that he was willing to work with Jane, and I really want to see more of Archer and like the way that he leads the pack. Next up, we're going to talk about the only other good royal sibling other than Edward, which is Bess. I absolutely loved Bess. I wish that she wasn't so like timid and small, but like obviously that's just like part of her character and stuff. I loved Bess. I really liked the fact that she saved Jane, she helped with Edward, and that she was with Petunia as well. And also, she is an Ethian, and I think that's super cool as well. And because Edward is supposed to be Ethian as well, I really am curious to see like who in their lineage was Ethian to make them Ethian, and also who are these royal kids' parents, because there's like one of them is white, one of them is black, one of them is mixed, and it's not adding up. So like who is Edward, who are your parents? Because obviously they like brought it up kind of quickly in the beginning, but I want to know like who is who. Like give me a lineage please, because I'm a little bit confused. But I really like Bess, and I'm excited to see like more of Bess. I think she and Jane becoming close friends and like working together would be really cool. I think they started to do that a little bit in the show but didn't have the time to really like fully flesh that out, so I really would love to see that more. Next up is Edward. I think Edward is such an interesting character because the way that they made him, it was just so good. He wasn't like a normal king, like he was a different king, and he really loves like being a monarch. And I like that he like was working with Petunia to figure out who was poisoning him, and him and Fitz are so cute. So seeing him meet more Ethians and see how they work and live, and seeing how badly they are treated and wanting to change, that would be really interesting to see as well. So I loved Edward. I think he's a really good character. I love his close relationship with Jane as well, and the fact that he made Jane his successor. Obviously cousins like that, like I get it. And I would love to see more of him, maybe like realizing and like discovering his sexuality as the king. Like I think that would be so interesting. Next up, I'm gonna talk about Stan, Guilford's younger brother. I don't actually know who's older, but I would assume that Guilford is older. I think Stan is really funny. I think both of the Dudleys are really funny, but I think Stan is really funny because obviously when we thought that that was who James was gonna marry, I was like, oh, this is bad. He was so mean to that little kid. But I think Stan is an interesting character because he just wants to like appease his dad so much. I think it would be really interesting to see more of Stan and Guilford like as brothers. I'm sure they probably aren't super close because, you know, Guilford like turns into a horse for 12 hours a day. Him and Francis's relationship, it's a little weird. I don't love a big age gap. I don't love it, but I think Stan has a lot of like growth, and he has so much potential as a character. Like I think we could see so much from Stan. I want to see Stan like becoming more like his father and like kind of learning the ropes from his father, because we saw that a little bit, but I love to see that more. Next up is one of my favorite characters, and that's Margaret. I absolutely loved Margaret. I think she was such a good, like, I love a little younger sister character. She reminds me of like Hyacinth and Bridgerton, like just so good. First of all, Margaret is a real one. The fake blood for the wedding, really killing the lord that Catherine was married to. Like she's so real, and I think Margaret is so sweet because she actually truly cares about her sisters so much, and she will do like anything to really help them. I don't like the fact that they made Margaret like basically turn on Jane and become friends with Seymour and Mary, because I just don't think that that like makes sense. But I guess that shows that she's still a child, and even though she is so smart, she still got kind of like outwitted by them. But I'm kind of annoyed that she was the one that kind of ratted them out. I guess it's okay, but I'm excited to see more of Margaret and like see her being like mischievous and like being bad, because I think I love characters like that, because Margaret, she's so smart. Like she's literally so smart, and she's so real. Like she will tell you how it is even though everyone else won't, because she doesn't have anybody to like own up to. Like she doesn't need to answer to anyone. She doesn't have to worry about society and stuff, because she's just a little girl, and I just like really love that. Next up is Catherine. I really like Catherine. Getting to see Catherine like come out of her shell a bit more throughout the whole season, because obviously at the beginning like she's just so shy and like really quiet, and like she marries that lord without really much protest, even though that was so wrong of her mother to do. But also her like watching Margaret kill him and just be like, and I'm excited to see her and her man. I think his name was William. I'm not 100% sure. But I really like seeing her like discover love and try to flirt and try to be like lovey-dovey with the man. That love story will be really interesting, just because it's like something that they both chose and they weren't forced into it. I really want to see her with Jane and like that sisterhood. I feel like we didn't get to see a lot of the sisterhood between the three sisters just because Jane was off being queen. But I did really like seeing Catherine and Margaret's relationship. I think that was really sweet. And I just want to see more of that. Let's talk about the villains of this show. We're gonna start with Lord Seymour. Lord Seymour was an interesting character to me. I would really like to see more of his backstory of how he and Mary became so close and why they decided to poison Edward, like what they thought was so big that they wanted to poison Edward. Lord Seymour is like very ruthless. I didn't like him, and I don't think I was supposed to like him, but I really want them to humanize both of the villains just a little bit more. I also really like the like man that is just so down horrendous for a woman, but I don't know if that's really Seymour and if he's down horrendous for Mary, or if he just wants the power more than anything. You know what I mean? So I'm really excited and interested to see more about Seymour. He's a bad man for his Ethian prison, like what the heck? And also that scene where he like stomped on that man who wrote the fake will, because he was a grasshopper, and he stomped on him. Like, you're a bad person, Seymour, a bad person. And up next, another bad person is Mary. Don't piss me off. Like, first thing I'm gonna say, I don't like the fact that they put Mary's makeup so white. I don't know if that was like a creative choice, if that was on purpose, if that was how filming and like filtering and editing and the lighting and the whatever. You gotta fix Mary's makeup, first of all. I think Mary was a really good villain. Like, she was so interesting, and I really disliked her, but I think that's a good thing, because she was a bad person, and her literally killing Jane was insane. Her killing her brother, like, I want to know more of why she so wants to be queen though, because I just don't see or understand it. But obviously, like, that's just Mary. But I think Mary and Seymour were really interesting. I think they were a good villain duo. Like, I want to see more of like why Mary is the way she is, because it seems that she kind of like, she seems like she had like a hard or like a rougher childhood, and so I would love to see more of Mary and like why she is this way. It's like experiencing love, because I think that's the only time you see her be more like vulnerable. Next up is Lord Dudley. So that's Guilford and Stan's dad. I loved him. He was so funny. I feel like the Dudleys filled the like Featherington like humor role in this show, and it was so funny. Like, Dudley's never say that. It's just like, I don't know, all of the scenes where he was in, I just had to laugh. Like, he was just so funny, and I really enjoyed his banter with Francis and with his sons and with everybody. The only time I didn't really like him was when he was like, Jane, do you really think you could find a real man to love you and to marry you? I was like, that was sick. That was a really sick thing to do. I think Lord Dudley is such a good, he's a good dad. Like, that's a good dad. He do want power. He is a little bit power hungry, but in the end, he loves his children. You can tell, like, the safe house that he built and everything he put in place to cover Guilford's Ethianism and to make sure that he could live this life. Like, that's a father first. He's a father first. He a little power hungry, he a little weird, he a little crazy, he a little mean, but he a father first. And that's, I love that. I love that. Speaking of parents, next up is Frances, and I loved Frances. I think Frances, like, obviously she's mean. Like, she's mean. She was mean to her daughters. She was mean to people. She was mean to Stan. Like, she was mean, but you know that she comes with the intentions of trying to protect her family, trying to protect her children, and I think that's like the most important thing. She knows how to do stuff, and like, especially as a woman in society, a society that is run by men, to be left alone to raise 3 daughters and to ensure that they can live the life that they're meant to live, also being in the court. Like, I think Frances is a great lady. Was she a little weird being with Stan? Yes. Was she kind of mean to Jane? Yes. But in the end, everything worked out. Like, she forced Jane to marry that man and ended up being the man that she loved. how can y'all be mad at my girl Frances? Like, I'm gonna defend my girl Frances. I think she's kind of like Portia Featherington, and I like that we got to see more of her love from the beginning. Now for my favorite two characters, Guilford and Jane. I'm gonna start off with Guilford. I really liked Guilford's character. I think obviously they like have love at first sight. Like, they both see each other and they're so intrigued. Guilford, I think as a character is really interesting just because like he's Ethian, but he does not want to be Ethian. And I think it's so different from everybody else who's Ethian, because all the other Ethians you see love being Ethian. They're very proud of being Ethian. They don't want to change that. But Guilford sees it as like a burden on his life, and also because of how he became an Ethian and with his mom and everything like that was really, really sad. And obviously like I liked hearing that backstory to understand him more. But I think that was really interesting to see that Guilford, all he wants is just to live life as a Verity and as a normal human being. His desire for Jane and the way he went about that was really, really nice and respectful, and I really, really liked it. Like, I think in every moment he really let Jane lead, because she had said from the beginning that she wanted a divorce. And I think it was such a beautiful like showing of him just being like, okay, like if you want to do something, yes. If you don't want to do something, no. Like, I will just kind of go with what you want. Him falling in love with her and like realizing it, even though he ran away, but he didn't really run away. He went to find a cure. That man tried to kill him, and then he needed to come back to Jane, you know? But I just think Guilford is such an interesting character, and obviously we didn't get to learn so much about him just because my man was a horse for 12 hours a day. To see more from Guilford, I think would be really interesting. I think him working with the Ethians would be really cool, because he's lived this life where he had to hide his whole entire life for so long, and so now that he has this freedom, I'm excited to see like what he does now. I also really like his banter with Jane. I think he's like a good little like brooding main lead. He gives Anthony Bridgerton. He gives Anthony Bridgerton, and I love it. Now for my favorite character ever, main character of all, Miss Jane Grey. Technically Jane Dudley, but whatever. I love Jane. First of all, the actress that plays Jane is American, and we have the same birthday, so shout out to her, because hi birthday twin, and your British accent was so good. If you had told me that you were American, I wouldn't have believed you. Giving her flowers. I absolutely love Jane. Jane Grey, you will always be famous to me. You are amazing. I just loved that Jane was like, I don't want to live this life. Like, even if you guys say I have to, I will not be doing this. I loved her into like herbs and like medicine and stuff. I thought that was really, really cool. I wish we got to see that more. She just like wanted to be independent, and one of my favorite lines for Jane was when she was like, oh, so you married me for my brain, when Guilford was like, I want you to find the cure. Like, that just meant so much to me, because it was just like, she just wants to be independent. She wants to be appreciated for her and not to be some man's property. She was called to be queen. She took it so seriously, and she did everything in her power to ensure that whoever killed Edward was going to be found, and to also make the country better. And I think her final speech before she was supposed to be sentenced to death was so beautiful to see like the growth, because I think her becoming queen made her realize how self-centered she was and how much she had lived in a bubble, and seeing more of like Ethians and the life that Guilford lived, and being in court and making those decisions about like the country, I think was really, really big for her. I loved Jane reaching out to the Ethians and working with Archer, even though it was meant for them to be kind of a pawn in her quest to get married in Seymour. I think she's learned so much from Archer, and she and Archer can be such a good diplomatic duo. Like, I think that will be such a good duo. I think they would work so well together, and I think it'd be so interesting, and I would just really love to see more of that. But I also just really think Jane and how she handled her relationship with Guilford was so good. Like, I really love the fact that she was like, I want a divorce from the beginning, and she was like, I will do everything I can to get this divorce. I also loved how she fell in love with Guilford, and it was on her own time. She didn't let anything happen that she didn't want to happen, and there was like a lot of consent and like just like understanding between the two of them. I really appreciated the way that they handled their love story. Obviously the show's TV-14, so I knew that nothing on the show would be really, really crazy that we were gonna see. It wasn't gonna be Bridgerton level of like intimacy, but I really like the way that they handled intimacy on the show and within their love story. I like the fact that it was enemies to lovers with a slow burn. They were enemies, obviously, like they didn't like each other, they didn't want to do this, like all this whole thing, but I also like that they took it slowly, that they took their time, that Jane was like very adamant on what she wanted, and when she realized that she didn't want what she thought she wanted, she changed that, and it was all in her time. There wasn't any forced or like coerced or anything. Like, it was very much like, are you sure, do you want to do this? And I just think that was so beautiful to see, and I just love that Jane got to experience like love like that, even when she thought that she was gonna die. Like all she wanted was to see Guilford one more time, just to like see him and know that he was gonna be okay. And I think that's just such a beautiful view of love. Guilford and Jane's banter, that banter was so good, and I loved seeing it. And I love that even after they had become close and like were in love, they still had that banter. They still had that little bicker, because something about banter like that, like 10 across the board. The show was so good, and I need a season 2. But first, let's talk about the plot of season 1. Okay, so for the plot, obviously, I really liked the Ethan storyline. I thought that was really interesting to learn more about, and I think that was such a good twist to add to the show. And I liked the little, like, it was kind of like a little supernatural twist that was so interesting. I feel like someone else we know is Ethan in the cast that they just like haven't shown, and I would love to see that as well. Family relationships in the show, because I think the scene in the safe house with the Dudleys was so beautiful and like so sweet to see Catherine and Margaret work together, but also how like the Greys as a family, like a family of women, came together in the way that like Margaret came and told Jane like she's still gonna kill Guilford, like you don't need to fake it. Like I just like those little relationships. Even Edward and Mary and Bess, and seeing like Bess stand up to Mary after so long of being silenced. Like the family dynamic of like the pack and the Ethians, I think was really cool to see, like the friendships that like, but this is like your found family, especially because a lot of them talked about how like their family left them. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about what I want for season 2, which Amazon Prime, if you are watching this, please, I am begging you, give us a season 2 of My Lady Jane. I need it. I need it. Y'all made this season a little too good. A little too good for it to be one season and done. This could be your next big hit, and I really want to see it. I'll talk about what I want for season 2. First thing, I want Edward back on the throne. I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know when. I need Edward back on the throne. I need Jane as his right-hand girl. I guess not man. Right-hand girl. Like I need Jane in the role that Seymour played for him. I need Jane in that role, and I need Edward back on the throne. I think Mary and Seymour should be it, but they're not gonna kill them off. Like they're just not going to. So I think Mary and Seymour should be banished, and they go to Spain to work with the King of Spain to kick out and like eradicate Ethians in England, and for Mary to get back on the throne, and like that could be a whole plot of season 2. Like Amazon, I am writing the script for you. I'm giving you the plot. You just have to give it to me on a silver platter and invite me to the premiere. Thank you. I also want to see more of the Ethians. I think it also would be cool to have Ethians in the court, like have Archer, Susanna, maybe somebody else in court, being a part of the law and the ruling class of England, because Ethians are going to be there forever and they're super cool. More of Margaret. Maybe Margaret having another friend or something, like somebody her age. I would love to see that for Margaret. Margaret and Frances being friends. Like obviously Frances is her mother, but I think like them working together and like kind of rebuilding that relationship. The things that Frances has an issue with in Margaret, I think she gets from Frances. Like I think that Margaret is the daughter that is most like Frances, and I think if Frances saw it more as a positive thing than like a negative thing, and started to work to mold Margaret to be more like her, and to, you know, like be able to get stuff done the way that Frances does, would be really interesting. So I need to see the Dudleys more. Like I really love that dynamic of the three of them, especially when they're trying to get Guilford out of the prison as well. And lastly, for season 2, I want to see Jane and Guilford in love. Obviously, I want to see them so happy, and I want to see how they get back to court and to England and, you know, in there, because obviously so many people in England loved Jane, but then there's also some people that didn't because they didn't like Ethians, and that's like a whole thing. That was my review of My Lady Jane season 1. I absolutely love this show. Amazon, you did an amazing job. I will be reading the book soon. I really am excited to see what more comes, and I love the whole cast. I've been following all of them on Instagram, and they're just so iconic. Like I just love them. It really seems like they really enjoyed each other's company. The chemistry between all the characters was so good. Like comment down below your thoughts, what you thought, like if you liked the show, if you didn't like the show, if you enjoyed things, if you didn't. Like I want to hear everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. And yeah, love you guys. Mwah. Bye.